Hey, it's Dennis.
Hey, it's John.
Uh,
Welcome to the Vending Plus. Today we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence. So, Dennis, why don't you start us off? What is AI?
AI, artificial intelligence. I believe it's the concept of creating a kind of computer program in itself, te- teach itself to be better, to optimize, how you normally perform a simple function, and then after from there, it kind of spreads into learning more things, and itself just strengthens itself. Is that something? Am I on the money on that one, John?
So, I pulled out a definition on looks like the IBM website. Artificial intelligence leverages computers and machine to mimic the problem solving and decision making capabilities of the human mind.
Oh.
So pretty much, I guess this definition is very concise. Um, we're replacing, not replacing, I guess, leveraging, technology such as computers and machine to make decisions that, thoughts, ideas, and maybe processes that you and I would do, right? So pretty cool stuff, and obviously, this topic that we want to talk today because I think it's a very, real and upcoming thing that, we should get scared. I think just having computers able to think, isn't that such a breakthrough? And I'm sure there's already stuff out there right now that's, if you see it, you would be shocked.
Yeah, with the technological age like advancing, almost every day, you kind of forget like our smartphone itself carries AI in it, right? The evolution of our households becoming more smart and things like that. And I think that's all the basis of AI. But I believe a lot of people would think AI itself is something very scary, right? You watch a lot of movies, come to mind. You have iRobot, like that Will Smith movie, right? You have like Matrix. You have all these kind of sci-fi movies that portray AI as something malicious, I would say. But like I think it's something to our minds around and say that the glass is also half full, right? At the end of the day, it's I think the efficiencies of how we handle certain things rely on these technology advances, and then we have to live coexist with them.
Yeah. Like I'm pretty optimistic for it. I don't think it's a bad thing just because, when I look at it, it's opportunity. And, there's a lot of the, I guess, big market cap companies, they incorporate AI in their businesses. And, that's how they grow to become the size they are because, they're leveraging technology to their advantage. For us, if we're fixated on, it's going to replace our job, it's going to, make us obsolete. I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it. You know, what I saw that was out there that was quite interesting. It's actually from Tesla. They are actually creating pretty much the iRobot scenario. They're making robots. Dennis, have you seen the video of their AI humanoid?
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty revolutionary stuff, right? Right. It's actually things in the past where we watch like I mentioned in movies, you see it in shows and all that, right? But it's starting to materialize.
Yeah, and I guess the core thing about why that stands out when we talk about AI is yes, it will replace jobs that are, you know, what we might be doing right now. But the thing is, it's going to open up new jobs for humans to take on, right? AI is going to replace a lot of those jobs that, I'm not going to say they're very complex for humans, but for machines to do that, it's actually very smart, right? So, things maybe just, you know, manual labor or very repetitive task. I think even when you think of going into a supermarket using their self checkout, that's an early stage AI. It might not fully replace a cashier, but I think as technology improves, it's gonna get there where, um, I think Amazon has this, and I'm not sure if this is everywhere. Have you seen where you can just put a piece of grocery item into their shopping cart, and then I guess the shopping cart is registered to your credit card. When you walk out the store, everything's paid for. So, everything in your shopping cart, you paid for it. And that I think that is part AI too, if I'm not mistaken. And, just the opportunity of that, it opens the world to so many, I guess opportunities for humans to take on. They don't have to work in a supermarket. They don't have to do, manual labor job if computers can do that. So I honestly think it's to improve our future, but maybe they're a different camp that thinks otherwise. How about you? What do you think, Dennis?
100% agree on that. Like, especially I'm looking at it more. I think there was a statement around the Tesla bots, just like they want to replace the high risk jobs first, right? Like those jobs that one can lose their life, one can like really hurt themselves and things like that. I think that's very critical. Not only just for a safety standard wise, but as a cost wise, right? I think that a lot of the stuff that we have or we try to buy, it's like the added cost on top of that, right? Like if you have a construction worker that unfortunately was fell off from a high rise building and cannot work anymore or whatnot, but he has life insurance or his company's covered, whatever, right? That premium or whatever payout that is, um, all of that is an added cost, right? And unfortunately that person is injured, but and then he or she needs to keep living. But if you have a robot that's able to replace that person, any damage from there is only strictly the cost of the robot or the artificial intelligence mechanism, right? So that itself is such a cost saving opportunity, and no one gets hurt, right? To
Yeah.
your point too, right, John? The shopping experience, right? When you said that example, I instantly think of fast food places, right? And I'm not only talking about the workers in the back who cook the food gets replaced. Like they also get hurt and all that too, which goes back to my first example. But the ordering kiosk itself, right, has changed. The concept of not to starve yourself in like a foreign country, because with a flip, you can just press the button and the whole menu changes to a preferred language, right? You're able to, if you have any allergies, if you want specific things, you can just press and go, and that order sends. And it's such a little bit of like that barrier of communication, that optimization of that experience it's profound. It's amazing.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just reading up something. Did you know the idea of machine learning? I know we didn't talk about this, but machine learning is, I guess, one of the key areas to know about AI too. It actually dates back to ancient Greece. I thought that's interesting. So, I think the thought of one day having some sort of technology to do something for you, like think on its own, it's dated that far back. So I think that shows that humans, are very smart. We have the ability to, overcome it, even though, hey, AI is going to take away some of your jobs. But I think humans are on this planet to do greater things than, manual labor jobs, right? And
Yeah.
and I think that's a very cool thing. And, I'm very optimistic about it.
Did they mention any kind of examples that they tried to make in ancient Greece?
It looks like there is some, historical kind of timeline. Um, I think it was just an idea back in ancient Greece. It was on the IBM website, but it looks like the first documented type of publishing was by Alan Turner
Mm-hmm.
in 1950, and there's some talk about that. It looks like Alan Turner. Oh, I think it's based on one of the movies that is out. But it was using AI to solve something in the war, right? The Enigma code during
Mm.
World War II. So you know this dates back a while, and obviously as technology gets better and better, we're going to get closer to AI.
Uh, I'm gonna check
But
up on that movie, to be honest. But sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah. No, no. I see here too. If we want to give AI a little bit more meat, to this conversation, these are some of the real world applications that, AI system that we use today. And, I'm gonna just read them out and, we can talk about a few of them, but I think these aren't a surprise. Speech recognition. So,
Mm-hmm.
things like Siri, Alexa, Google, those are AI. Customer service. So you have online virtual agents replacing, I guess human agents through the customer journey. I think you might know a little bit more about this than me, but let's dive into it. Computer vision, that's
Mm-hmm.
something that I know Tesla's going to be hopefully the industry leader in this with their self-driving cars. They're focusing on, computer vision, recommendation engines. So Google, I don't know if I should mention Bing, but like, Google's the biggest one. They use, their massive search engine to help kind of, drive this, decision making or, anticipate what the user is going to be searching for, and then automated stock trading. So if you're not aware, actually, there's stock portfolios out there that are AI driven. It's not a human behind, that fund or that portfolio anymore managing your fund. There is an opportunity to use AI to, obviously calculate those high frequency and volumes to, anticipate, different variables to size your portfolio or position your portfolio the way you want it to. And, I don't know how that works. But I'm pretty sure a computer in, aggregating a large sum of data is going to be more efficient than, you and I studying the stock market, 24 hours a day, right? If we are traders, right? So kind of cool stuff.
Wow. But let me ask you this, John. Do you use any kind of AI in daily living?
Just based on these 500% Google, if that's what they could, say it's an AI. So search engines for sure, recommendation engines. I have a Google Play, so hey Google, I ask questions. Maybe not the computer vision, not the automated stock trading, and maybe sometimes the customer service agent. When you ask, oh, I guess I'm with Fido, right? I tried using their automated I guess response. Honestly, truthfully, it was very underwhelming. So I don't think that part's at par yet, because once you ask a little bit more complex question, it's like, oh, speak to a representative. Should have told me that in the first place. That's why I want to speak to a representative, because I need a question to be solved. So yeah, those
Mm-hmm.
those are mine. How about you?
I think the biggest one I use is just my Google Home in general. Not only do I use it as a source of like entertainment for like music listening, but the lights that are currently lit up in my room right now is being controlled by like voice, right? Like speech. And the interesting part too is like because I have a routine, I guess like of always turning it on at a certain period of time. When it doesn't, it actually sends a notification to my phone saying that usually at this time I would say this. Is this something do you want to do, right? So instead of me actually giving a command, it already pre-prompt that, right? And I found that really interesting. So it kind of goes back into the whole people are not are being very, what is it called, data protective, or doesn't want to be tracked or traced, right? I think there is a greater good to it, in the sense that in order for AI to materialize, the data has to be there, it has to be available, it has to be able to recognize patterns and things like that to optimize itself. And it's just um that in itself, like everything we do is gonna be traced no matter what. I feel that, right? Like even a lot of times when you even have like go on different platforms, different devices, you kind of scroll down, you just agree everything, and you just move on, right? Then there is so critical for the next step to be happen. But yeah.
Yeah, no, like what are your thoughts on, I guess, go back to how you use the Google Lights and stuff. do you find that because I have smart lights too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now I have different smart, devices. But do you find that smart lights are inconvenient? Like, yes, it could, you know, be voice recognized to open, turn off, but then I don't know, maybe it's just me, but once in a while the connection disconnects or it gets resetted or something, and or my settings get resetted, or maybe I just got some crappy smart lights. But yeah, it's inconvenient. Like you gotta like reset the stuff again, you gotta reconfigure it again. Do you have that problem with your lights, Dennis, or it's like smooth sailing?
So I've never had that problem. It's pretty smooth sailing, and knock on wood, it doesn't start happening after this conversation. But I think the only negative experience I've had with it is, well, I can list a couple. One, it's there was a internet outage, so I couldn't really use my voice to do anything. Right, it was still like operating as a normal switch. Second would be, I guess because my parents, I live with my parents and their um, pronunciation may not be the greatest. It doesn't recognize for them. So they, out of frustration, they just use it as a regular switch. So then for me, when I'm coming in, I would have to turn it back on. If not, then I spend like 2 seconds like, what's going on? Where's my light? Right. But ultimately, like, it helps a lot because, I usually have my hands full and they're coming into and out of the room. So it's just a big convenience for me, right? And sometimes like just a change in color, really helps the mood.
Yeah. Okay. I know where it went wrong. Does your lights, when you configure it, you have to flicker the switch?
Yeah, you always have to leave it on. Like no matter what, you
Okay.
leave it on.
Yeah, because I think my room, my switch got flickered a few times, and then when I go in, it's like a disco show in there. It's like flashing. It's like, oh, you gotta reconfigure your
Oh
show.
yeah. If
I'm
you
like
turn it
flicker the
on and
light.
off like really quickly, yeah, it goes
Yeah,
into like the pairing mode or something like that.
yeah. So yeah, there's pros and cons, but yeah, that was kind of a fun,
Yeah.
conversation. Just I guess it's not always just positives, but I think on the macro for sure, I think there is a whole weeping wop of opportunities out there for just human beings and coexisting with artificial intelligence and like robots and stuff, right?
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, my arms are open. I want it to happen even faster and sooner. The whole concept of, maybe even one day having hover stuff. All those kind of sci-fi things. I want it to happen like even sooner, just to
Yeah.
make daily life like a little bit more cool, more, I don't know, more advanced than what it is, because it's kind of disappointing, right? Like you've seen so many. I know that it's fictional, like stories and things like that you've seen back in like the 80s and 90s of how the 2000s would play out, but it's nice to know it's getting closer.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, the downside of AI. Like, would you be concerned about, be out of a job because of AI, right? Obviously, it's up and coming. It could replace a lot of jobs, displace a lot of, you know, people from their careers just based on what they do. Like, how worried are you in terms of AI affecting, your industry, your type of, craft?
To be honest, John, my craft already is at supposedly at risk. And why I say that is, as you mentioned, the whole Fido AI bot, right? That in itself takes away my function to plan for number of calls coming in, so that you can speak to a representative, right? So slowly it's really tapping in. And honestly, if I do my job at 100%, there will be less people on my team. So in itself, it's kind of playing that way. But where I need to focus is that, I don't want to pivot myself, like put myself in a corner, right? So call center analytics, I don't want that to be my main function, right? I'm trying to learn the surrounding pieces around it. Like, is it data driven? Is it what need to present things to my leaders in order to get certain results, right? I just work around that and try to strengthen myself in those areas so that I'm at less risk. That's how I'm thinking about it. But I don't know about you, John. Are you on the same boat?
You know what? I think, well, let me ask you one more thing before talk about me.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on kind of your expertise, you and me, you're the numbers guy, you're the data guy. What's your forecast, right? Like judging by the pace of, how AI and, with the customer service AI support, trending now, like how what's the, I guess, the attrition rate of these teams that you are operating? Like how many years until, hey, we don't need this type of role anymore because AI is anticipating all of this for us? What are your thoughts?
That's a very good one. And all I can say is that it's gonna be a long time before that happens to me, or in my industry. And why the reason behind that is that in the end of the day, there's always, as a customer, you always want someone to yell at, right? If you're unhappy or something like that, you always want someone. It's someone's fault. It's never gonna be a system issue. It can be a system issue, right? Like things happen, right? Technology is still a little bit unpredictable at times, right? Things happen to individuals that doesn't happen to everybody, right? And out of frustration, the best release for people is to actually yell at somebody. So I always think that there is going to be a small group of call center representatives or someone of that sort to be picking up the phones, right? And even to your experience, John, like the AI experience there, like after a while, even if your problem wasn't that frustrating, the fact that you went through the AI and it did not give you proper answers after, like, I don't know how long you spent with it, didn't you get frustrated? Didn't you be like, you mentioned, right? You should have just connected me with a person to begin with, correct?
Yeah. So it's like
Exactly.
what's the point?
What's
I messaged like kind of two, three questions just to, because
mm-hmm.
they funnel you, right? Like they ask you, answer kind of vaguely, and then it's like, oh, like, do you want this or that? It's like none of the above, I want this. And then it's like none of the above, I want this. And then it's like, can I speak to a rep? And then it's like, oh, yeah, call in. I'm like, okay, I didn't need to go through this whole exercise when I should have called in, but when I call in, it's like a 3 hour wait. So, it's
Exactly,
like
right? So
we're
you went
suffering as users.
exactly. You went from maybe you allocated a portion of your lunch hour to oh, I'm gonna use this whole hour to talk to a representative and get things done, and then you have the rest of the day move on, but then you spend, like, let's say 15-20 minutes on this AI, but then afterwards it pushes your window of having someone to pick up your phone further out, and you're like, okay, my hour's gone, right? So that experience in itself, I believe that even the main function of that, to be honest, I think is just to wipe out the simpler calls, right? If you want to pay a bill or something like that, it can direct you of that sort. But complex problems and things like that, that's why I feel that in my industry that it's gonna be a long time before that step is gonna be taken, right? Especially
Yeah.
like like maybe you and I are for like very strong in English, right? If you're an
Yeah.
immigrant, if you're speaking another language or that sort, you may not be typing as great, right? There's so much, like, broken English and things like that AI is not able to pick up. You're gonna need a person to talk to, right? That's why people are paid, like, are the salaries that they are, to speak different languages. If you are not able to speak in the preferred one and things like that, eventually it'll get there. But I don't feel that's gonna be within the next 15-20 years.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful on your end. And yeah, like same for me. I don't think it's gonna affect my industry. I think now that we talked about it, it's functions of the job, right? A job sometimes it's pretty dynamic. You don't just have one function in your role, you have multiple functions. So, as HR, I could see it in certain, I guess, silo segments of HR, but it can't replace the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for a big company, you could, they have big HR teams, right? HR that does specifically one function, like recruitment, like compensation, like benefits, right? Whereas, if you're in a company that does everything, it's hard to replace that specific role. But, I do see it maybe in larger organization where you're doing only solely one function. There is that opportunity, but I think we're still a little bit far away. I think when we talked about earlier, replacing the dangerous and, jobs that are more critical should take precedence.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not too worried right now. But, our channel is about talking stuff like this, right? So, what can we do to, future proof ourselves? What are your thoughts on this, Dennis? Can we future proof ourselves to, make sure we, stay employed or have a job, if AI does take over, quote unquote?
So, like I'm a strong believer in, when you're in a job, the priority should always be that you should make yourself irreplaceable, right? Just so that, job security is a myth in the sense that if you rub someone the wrong way, you're on a risk, right? But if you were to have a set of skills that make you very valuable, it's giving the person a harder reason to, do any malicious things to you, right? And it gives you a some room to breathe so that another day that goes by that you don't have to be worried about losing your job. So to all the listeners, think be replaceable. How to be replaceable? Maybe talk, be very sociable, be a very likable person, be a team player. Figure out what people are having trouble with. Help them by helping yourself as well, right? Maybe there are some things, some technical skills that you're better at that you can offer. If you spend the extra hour or extra time after work or something like that to help this person, you're in their good books. Beyond working there too, maybe it's an educational preference. Maybe you have some areas of like book knowledge that other people don't, to kind of bring in fresh ideas and different perspectives. I think those are the two main ones that I can really think about. John, I don't know if you want to add any more, but just to end it on my note, I also believe in what we call natural selection, right? It's for those, unfortunately, chose, just to work the simpler jobs, maybe bagging groceries, doing fast food work, unfortunately, there is going to be a time where, it kind of makes sense, right? Everything gets more expensive. Your job is not scaling. You need to put in more effort to make yourself better, right? That goes back into what I said, be irreplaceable. And that would kind of result in you maybe need more networking, maybe need more educational preference. And there's so many resources out there that can get you there, right? It's just the initiative, it's the drive, it's the motivation to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, no, Dennis, well said. Truly, I think those are the, foundation of being someone that's irreplaceable. And, if that's not something you practice in your, career right now, highly encourage it. What's there to lose? Just give it a shot. Try to do things differently and, take the effort to, better yourself and become irreplaceable. So good stuff.
Yep, yep, yep. And like a lot of people, don't want to be in debt. I understand that, 110%. And the other excuse that people say that you don't really know what you want to do and you don't want to burden yourself with a debt, right? What if you decide you want to be an engineer one day, and then halfway through completing, you just hate your life by studying, right? And you go to computer science. I think that's where people need to understand. It's do not be scared of like because you're in financial debt, you have to commit to one thing and go 100% in it and live a miserable life. It's because you took that first step into going in a direction that you thought you want to go. It's where you learn that there are other paths along the way that you can take. I think that's the most important piece, especially for our listeners who are maybe in high school or in the same boat as what I just mentioned. It's not it. But when I mentioned this, like have some sort of plan for it, right? It's like when you're studying one area, you don't go 360 to a completely different one just because it's simpler, just because it's it doesn't give you as mental taxing or something. Be successful in that area, right? And what and I don't want to put anyone on blast, but John, I think you and I can relate to this one. How many people have you learned that went into finance and accounting in university, and then halfway they went to like GMS or some sort of other major. You've heard a lot of that, right?
Yeah, it's
Right.
what Too
And
hard or
yeah, exactly. The other stuff, the finance, accounting, marketing was too hard, so they want something simpler. And I'm not here to like talk shit about GMS majors, right? I'm saying have a plan on what you're gonna do with that major, right? Don't complete it just for the sake of completing. Have a idea of where you want to do with it. What's the end result? How will you get out of debt with that one? It's easier to finish. You can say, yeah, I have a piece of paper from a post-secondary, I'm done. But are you really done? Did you get what you want out of it? Right?
yeah.
So that's where I was saying that, to your point, John, I think we were originally talking about how we would make ourselves, like, solidify ourselves in, like, the work or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's where I may have lost you guys, to be honest. I was on a little bit of a rant, but that's what my feeling is on that topic.
Yeah, no. 100% Dennis, summarizing what you just said, you know, you can change yourself, you can't change the environment. So, you know, take the risk, do what's right, and sometimes taking the hard route is not always the wrong route. Try
Yeah.
to go through with it. So good stuff. I think we had a very insightful,
And
sharing there.
yeah, I just want to add one more piece. It just clicked to me. I saw a post about Judge Judy, and she said that if you're not successful in your 20s, you can be successful in your 30s. And guess what? If you're not successful in your 30s, you can also be successful in your 40s, right? It's never, don't limit yourself because of age and because of time. There's always an opportunity for change for the better.
True. Was that video she's wearing a purple suit?
I think so, actually. To be honest, I only watch it for Judge Judy. Of the clothing wise, I kind of I didn't I can't remember, but I think it would have been the same one.
I saw motivational stuff and I was like, oh, this lady's spitting truth, but I forgot. I didn't know that's Judge Judy. So, whoa, cool, good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very profound and deep, motivational talk, and just hearing those lines give me goosebumps. So, don't
yeah,
give up. Don't give up for all our listeners.
yeah.
Go for it. We're rooting for you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, John, we are at our 30-minute mark as usual per our podcast episodes. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, nothing for me. What about you, Dennis?
I am 100% good.
Yeah, let me close us off. So, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, follow our socials. That will really help us a lot in growing this community. And also, if you want to ask us anything, hashtag the Vending Plus, and we will answer any questions or use any of the ideas shared with us. DM us through social media, Instagram. We'll respond back, as soon as possible, and we'll love to hear from you guys. And we're obviously growing, so any support helps. That's all from me, Dennis. Anything on your end?
No, I'm good. All right, thank you. From wherever you're listening, good. Have a good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Take care now.
Ciao.